wish it was more important.
Ready to go?
Whenever you are.
Okay. I'd like to welcome you all to our next session. This is Rob Walch of Today in iOS, and I will mention that this is Rob's 10th year being with us. Thanks, Rob.
All right. I always like to find some funny videos. I'll start with this one here.
In today's modern world, you can watch what you're doing, or you can watch where you're going, but you can't do both. And now, you don't have to, thanks to Guiding Hands. At Guiding Hands, we understand how important it is to stay connected when you're on the go. Simply request a guiding hand, and within seconds, we'll be at your side, ready to guide you to your destination. Let us navigate your world, so you can navigate the web. Your guiding hand distractions that once forced you to look up. We look out for you, so you can keep an eye on the things that matter. Enjoy the security that comes from it. You are finally, truly connected.
Oh God.
You'll never have to look up again. That's a promise. We got this.
Well done.
And there is your Pokemon Go slide, okay? So that's the only time I'm going to mention Pokemon Go. See, that's Guiding Hands. Perfect for that.
Yes.
When I came here in July of 2007, the only thing I had to talk about was the iPhone. And I could talk about it being 4 gig or 8 gig. That was what my show had to cover. There were no installable apps. There was just what was already installed. There was no app store. You know, Steve was talking at the time about web apps, and it was just before jailbreaking came out. So we were talking about, I think at the time, that there was rumors of it coming. So how things have changed since then? There are now 5 different iPhones currently for sale. So we've got the 6S Plus and the 6S and the 6S, the 6 Plus and the 6 and iPhone SE, which is, so we've got a few new ones since last year. We've got 5 iPads. You've got 10 devices there. You've got an Apple TV. You technically have 2 because they still sell the old one. We've got the regular Apple Watch, the Sport, and then we've got the stainless steel Apple Watch. I won't talk the edition. We've got the smart keyboard and the Apple Pencil. So it's actually, if you look at the items that came out since last year, the Pencil, the keyboard, the new Apple TV, the iPad Pro 12.9 and 9.7 inches, the iPad Air 2 and the 4, and 3 different iPhones. It was a busy year. I mean, you couldn't pick a busier year since I've been coming here. Different products that Apple's released, which is ironic because later when we talk about what is Apple going to release this coming year, not a whole lot that there's rumors on. This is a picture of me from a week and a half ago where I've been doing the podcast for a long time. I had another podcast for one. I got inducted into the Podcaster Hall of Fame. But I bring it up because I wanted to show you my bow tie that one of my listeners made for me. It is a bow tie with little Apple icons. So my little custom-made bow tie. I would have wore it today, but then I'd have to wear a long sleeve shirt, and it's 90. Feels like 99 degrees.
You don't like us that much.
Yeah, I was not going to do that. So again, in the last 12 months, Apple's been busy. iPhone 6s, Apple TV 4th Gen, the iPhone 6s Plus, Apple TV apps, the 12.9 and 9.7, the Apple Pencil and Smart Keyboard. I had to double up on these two to get everything in here, and I didn't get everything. iPhone SE, the iOS 10 Beta 3, and Swift Playgrounds, and I'll talk about that. Has anyone played with Swift Playgrounds yet?
I am going to install the beta when I get.
How many people have kids? Get an iPad, get the beta software, get them on it. It's Swift Playgrounds is really cool. See me after it and I'll show you. My son loves it. But there's one thing I left off this slide that was kind of big news last year.
Oh yeah.
And the FBI and Apple and the whole privacy issue. Kudos to Apple for their stance on that. And I've said it on my podcast. And I had the best moment as a dad. because I did this episode on Today in iOS where I went 45 minutes looking into everything, both sides, doing a lot of research, and it was a 45-minute explanation of what was going on with Apple v. FBI. And I put it up on a Sunday night. My son goes to school on Monday, and the news is breaking on it. And he comes home and goes, "Dad, tell me about this." And I put the iPhone down, and I had him listen. He sat there as he was 9 at the time. He's a 9-year-old, sat there and listened to the whole thing and understood it. But at the end of the day, it comes down to FBI wanted a backdoor. Apple said no. And because backdoors are going to be used by hackers and repressive regimes, and if you think it's anything different than that, it's a joke. And the FBI paid $1 million. I love that they paid $1 million plus. And the folks at Apple were bragging about that. They go, "Because it's only 10,000 or so for Android hacks. For us, you got to spend $1 million to get in." So there was a lot of rumors last year about what the iPad Pro would look like. How big was the iPad Pro going to be? Was it going to be this big? Was it going to be a little bit bigger? Maybe that big? Oh, heck, we'll just get it here bigger than people themselves. But the reality is it wound up being this big. And this is the iPad mini, this is the 9.7, and this is the iPad Pro, just to give you a nice perspective on how big it is. If you actually take the 9.7 and turn it sideways, it's like the size of 2 of the screens. That's how big it is. It's actually quite a bit bigger. It's bigger on the screen than the MacBook, the 12 and the 13-inch MacBooks. It's bigger. It's almost as big as the screen on the 15-inch MacBook Pro. But beyond just the screen size, the processor on this is really fast. It's actually faster than the MacBook. So here's the iPad Pro, single core. Longer is better. Here we've got the A9X processor, 3943 on single core benchmarks for memory. And if you just look down the line, here's the Surface, here's the 13-inch MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, and then the MacBook. So it is actually a really powerful machine. This is a machine you can do full audio and video editing and not feel like you're struggling. Some other more benchmark tests, again, longer is better, and the Pro is better than any of the other iPads, and then even better again than some of the MacBooks. And you have to get down here to a 15-inch MacBook Pro to get even close. But
we then introduced the genius that is the Apple Pencil. And you felt an inexplicable urge from your subconscious saying, "Buy it now, buy it now." But we heard your complaints. At only $99, even poor people who don't own a sailboat can afford that. Ew.
well, technically, you could buy the Apple Pencil at $99, but if you don't have the Pro, it's kind of worthless. So you have to spend the $1,300 to get the full setup on it when it's all said and done. So if you get the iPad Pro with the smart cover and the highest settings and the Apple Pencil, you're spending almost $1,500. So it's not cheap. So, right, but it is nice. What?
It's still cheaper than the satellite.
Yeah, and I'll just say this. It really is a nice machine. I mean, so I use it quite a bit. The keyboard is very nice. You can't type with your pinkies out though, because you hit the screen, and then it starts putting in words because of how it works up. Like right at the bottom, it'll put where you can the suggested words. So you have to be careful to be with your fingers in when you type. So you've got the Apple Pencil, you've got the smart keyboard. The problem is, where do you put the Apple Pencil when you're actually got everything together? Because Apple, in their wisdom, didn't actually make it easily to mount it with it. So you have to go with third party. And this is the best case. And I've looked, this is one from STM. So this is the full setup here. So this case will work with, and it becomes, you have to become good at mounting it. But that's the whole setup. And the beauty is the Apple Pencil goes right up in here. And then the other thing, nice thing about this case, again, it works with the smart cover. but it's clear on the back, so you get to show off the fact that you went and got the gold color. So one of the things I always hated about cases was you go and you pick a nice color, and then you cover it up, and no one ever sees the color you picked ever again. So this way, at least you can see I got the gold one. But this is from STM. It's the Dux case. I was not paid to endorse it. They did send it to me, but I tried a bunch of them out. This one I like because it allows you to use a smart keyboard, and it holds the pencil in a nice place. So if you do get one, I highly recommend that. Now, poor Microsoft. Let me read this slide. Now, this is a cartoon that was written in 2012. This cartoon was written in 2012, and it's like, so this is Bomber up there going, we call it the Surface, and someone's like, boo, your iPad sucks, and he's like, it's not an iPad, it's a Surface. And he goes, suck the surface of my, and I covered this up to be nice. Sometimes we have women in here, so be nice. And then he goes, you know, Bomber's like, it's got a kickstand and a cup holder, and this guy is like, still, your iPad still sucks. And it's like, hey, you buddy, we put a damn keyboard right in the cover. In 3 years, when Apple copies this, people will think this is a genius. They're a genius, and then someone asked me to do the monkey dance. And then, ironically, 3 years after the cartoon came out, Apple did release it, and the guy, hijinks ensue. Was it Joe Watson? Nailed it. I mean, to the letter. But you have to feel bad for Microsoft. They just can't catch a break.
No, I don't think I'm going to feel bad.
Sales per quarter, I always keep these slides. I've been doing this since I've been coming here, since the second year. Just shows you how much growth there's been. And this was the issue right here, where the first quarter of this past year, Apple sold 51.2 million iPhones. And the first quarter of the year before that, it was 61.2, and that was big news because that was the first time year over year where there was actually a drop. And there'll be a drop again this quarter when Apple reports next week, so we actually are a week before the next release. If you looked at the last 4 quarters average, there was also the first time there was a drop in the last 4 quarters of sales, of the total number of units, so it's actually not even average. So this is summing up the previous 4 quarters of sales for iPhones. And at the end of last quarter, it was 221. It was 231 in the quarter before that when you added up the last 4. So there was a decline for the iPhone. Now, part of that had to do with there was such pent-up demand for the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. A lot of people came out and got it. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next year. And we'll talk a little bit about it. Somewhere, either this quarter we're in now, it's most likely going to happen, Apple will reach 1 billion iPhones that have been sold all time. So at the end of last quarter, they were 947. I don't think they're going to get 53 million in last quarter. So it'll be sometime this quarter, probably this month, they'll hit their billion iPhones sold. That's a lot of devices. This is for iPad sales. And again, the raw numbers, and you can see the peak is kind of coming down. The iPad sales, the problem with the iPad is my kids still use their first generation iPad and third generation iPad and the iPad mini, and they worked fine. So Apple made a product that may be too good for it. Yeah. So the life cycle of the iPad's about 4 years. And here you can see the 4 quarter sales, the trend line here, how it's really come down. And then overall, they sold 318 million, so that's 1.3 billion devices between iPhones and iPads, and that doesn't include the iPod Touch. So Apple's doing well. And then this shows you in the life cycles of the iPhones versus the iPads, how they did for the last 4 quarters. And you can see iPhone much better. At this point in time, almost over double, where the iPad is on unit sales. Because there was a point in time Apple was getting up there saying, oh no, the iPad's doing better in its life cycle than the iPhone had. Well, that time's over. You don't hear Tim saying that anymore. I went back to when I first came here 9 years ago to see where Apple stock was and where it is today. And if you had bought Apple stock back when I first came here, it would be up right now today about 5 times the price. So about a 500% increase. Now, it's had a little rough time lately. I like this slide. I've lost more in 1 year of Apple stock sale than I've spent in 10 years of buying Apple products. And I saw this meme up there, and I had to go back and actually calculate, is that true or not? For me, it was pretty close. I make no bones. I was one, I put my 401k into Apple way back when. But I'm in it for the long haul. And here's how Apple's done against the S&P 500 over that period of time. So if you had $100 in Apple stock back 9 years ago, it'd be around $500 today. The S&P, $100 would be about $140. So a little bit better investment. So I always love hearing people complaining about Apple and Apple stock and oh, it's doing so bad. These are people that got in on it lately. If you're in it for the long haul, you're doing okay. And I am of the belief that Apple is still way undervalued. I love this. Apple now, handling 94% of global smartphone profits go to Apple. There's over 1,000 companies that make smartphones. And when you look at it, this is the profit. Apple's 90-something. Samsung's right a little bit above 10%, and a bunch of people are losing money. That's how you can get over 100% profits. But Samsung was coming close to Apple a couple years ago, and then Apple released a bigger smartphone, and their numbers went up. Samsung's profits went down. So they haven't been able to clone Apple's profits yet.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I thought that Android as an operating system had more market share than iOS.
This is profit share.
Okay.
This is this global smartphone operating profit share. So this is when you look at the companies that sell the smartphones, how much money did they make from selling those phones? Most companies that make smartphones lose money. And only Apple is making money. And Apple's making 94 at the end of 2015. For 2015, they made about 94% of the profit in 2015 of all the smartphones that were sold.
Gotcha.
And Samsung was second with about 11 or 12%.
Thank you.
But yeah, if you want to look at market share, then outside the U.S., I think if you actually look here, they even say it here, they're selling just 14.5% of total units, but they're making 94% of the profit. So that's where, why Apple doesn't sell a $200 smartphone, because you don't make money at that. Now, this is what was new in iOS 9, I highlighted from last year. This is iOS 10. For anyone that the beta's available, beta 3 came out this week. These are when you really look at what's new in beta 10, the big ones, Apple, made it out to sound like it was the greatest, the biggest update ever, because they always say that. QuickType is one of the new features that you're going to like. Photos with face recognition. This is probably right here the one feature that will be the most loved, and that's it auto pins where your car is. So you get out of your car at the mall, and it automatically knows you stopped driving and where your car is, so you can go to Siri, hey, where's my car? And it'll take you right to walking directions to your car. I also call this the Karen Walch, who's my wife's name, feature. Because she will call me saying, I don't know where I parked the car. I'm like, okay, let's walk back. But it can happen to anyone. I remember one time I went to Minneapolis for an NCAA tournament game, and I parked in a parking garage, and I was so excited to get to the games, and I stayed at the games all day long, and at night we had won, and we were out, and then I had to go back to find my car, and it was night. And I'm walking around for over an hour trying to find a parking garage where my car was. So that's a feature I think people are going to love. HomeKit app, Apple finally has that, so now you can aggregate together all your apps and control them in one place, like the HealthKit app, but for devices in your house. Voicemail transcriptions is another thing that people are going to use a lot. If you already had Google Voice, you already know about it. Hopefully this is better than Google Voice, because Google Voice is just really bad. Then collaboration in Notes. And I think the collaboration in Notes will be nice, but it's I don't know how many people you're going to get to do collaboration in Notes with you. It'll be tough sell. Right now, there's other ways to do it. Evernote, things like that. But when you look at the other updates that Apple did, Their message app was improved. The music app was improved. The Maps app was improved. The news app was improved. Siri improvements. When you really look, iOS 10 was really about improvements. At the end of the day, it wasn't so much about the new features. There are some new features, and there'll be others that you may like. But at the end of the day, it was really about Apple fixing some of the apps and improving some of the features and putting stuff in place on the Maps app and elsewhere that just bring it up a little bit. Better user experience, let's call it that. Not that they had anything wrong with any of those apps. So I always go back and look at how did I do on the predictions I made last year when I came here. And some of them, it's getting to the point where Apple really doesn't have the control on the rumor mill. Early on, I'd come here, I'd miss everything, I'd say, because nobody knew. And now it's gotten to the point where things are kind of predictable. Obviously, I said A9. I'll say, hey, it's going to be an A10 next year, obviously. They went to 2 gig of RAM, 4K of video recording, and a 12 megapixel camera finally. I had predicted a 1.7 gigahertz clock speed for the new iPhones. It actually came in at 1.8, so I'll put it as a no. Force Touch, 3D Touch, yes, that was pretty obvious since the Apple Watch had it. Camera flush with the back, nope, that didn't happen, and the Lynx DSLR quality didn't happen. I'll talk about that for predictions for this year. 2 sizes, same as the 6 and the 6 Plus. It was pretty obvious they were going to do that. And the names would be 6S and 6S Plus. And then the case material, stronger aluminum. Well, Ben Gate kind of dictated they were going to do that. And then the new color was rose gold. Wasn't a lot that was surprising that came out last year. The rumor mills of the people in China have really figured out who to pay off in the factories. Which is good for my job, makes it easy. Again, this was actually a picture I put up on a slide 2013. So before it was originally launched. And so that's what we had for the 6 and the 6S is the same thing. And this is them from another perspective. So here's what was actually new in a little bit more detail on the 6S and the 6S Plus. I mentioned the 64-bit A9, 1.8 gig. The talk time didn't improve. The video out supports 4K now. The front camera was 5 megapixels, and there's live photos. That was one of the few things that wasn't predicted. They talked in a lot about deep trenches for the camera. Optical video stabilization, playback zoom, 3D touch, semi-waterproof. Apple's added these little connectors that are kind of sealed. So they've made their connectors internally where water can't get into the connector. And that's usually where the issues come when you drop it in the water. The iPhone SE, there's videos of the iPhone SE working underwater for multiple hours.
Really?
Yes. So the iPhone SE, Apple's done that, and the iPhone SE really is just the iPhone 5S and 5. So Apple's done some stuff for semi-waterproofing it. I think they're going to talk about that more on the next iPhone. There was faster Touch ID, tougher glass, improved Wi-Fi, and the stronger aluminum. What I like to do is kind of rate things each year and give them a point rating. You know, this is worth 1.8 gigahertz. Well, A9, that's worth 3 points, and anywhere from 0, 1, 2, or 3, depending on what the improvement is. And I do that each year. I try to be objective about it. And last year, the 6S, 6S Plus had a plus 33 score. That was the best I've ever seen on a new iPhone. So even though the sales on it were down comparatively, the improvement under the hood for that version was the best I've ever seen on any iPhone. The iPhone 6 Plus was only a plus 24, but because it was bigger, everyone got excited because it was bigger. But when you actually looked at what was inside it, it wasn't all that different than what was inside the 5S. But the 6S versus the 6 is a much better device. And again, if you go back, the 5S was the last one. The S years tend to be the years where we have the best improvements. So the 4S was a 29, and the 5S was a 30, and the 6S was a 33 on a score. So I don't do negative scores, so like when they got rid of the 9-pin dock connector and went with Lightning, that could have been a negative score for a lot of people. For some reason, people don't like that. Now, if you want to know what the iPhone for this year is going to look like, it's probably going to be this for the Plus and this for the 7. So there's going to probably be a 7 and a 7 Plus is what most people are thinking. This is photos that have been released where they're saying, oh, there's going to be an iPhone 7 Plus and then a 7 Pro, and the 7 Pro would be the dual camera. I don't see Apple doing this. I don't see them doing two 5.5-inch iPhones where one has dual camera and one has a single camera. I think this was probably just a prototype that got out there, and they're not going to release it. So my guess this year would be two new iPhones in September, the 7 and the 7 Plus, and the 7 Plus will have the dual cameras, and it'll probably have the smart connector so you can plug it into a keyboard and do a little bit with that. So I think that's what you're going to see new in the 7 Plus. And then the 7 will have a bigger camera. So you see the opening here is actually quite a bit bigger than what's in the current iPhone. So it's going to be a bigger optical image sensor for better low light photos. Because as you all know, the low light photos on the iPhone still suck to this day compared to some other ones that are out there. So that's where Apple has to make it up. And reality is, the number one reason or thing you do with your phone these days is it's your camera. So Apple bought the Lynx company out of Israel, which has sensors that can make it almost DSLR. So I'm thinking this year we finally get to see the Lynx modules in the iPhone 7. That's about what it will take for me to upgrade. If they don't do the new camera with the Lynx and it has a DSLR, I probably won't upgrade this year. I'll probably wait another year for when they come out with a different one with inductive charging and all the other things, and I'll show some pictures of what people think it is. The other thing that people are predicting is they're going to get rid of the headphone jack. And I read this on the rumors that the next iPhone will not include a headphone jack. And this is Archer, for those that don't know. Do you want me to switch to Android? Because getting rid of the headphone jack, I think that's the one thing I've heard the most complaints from my listeners is I don't want to get rid of the headphone jack. They don't want another dongle. For those that don't remember, the original iPhone had a dongle because it didn't support the regular headphone jacks. So you actually had to have a dongle to get your regular headphones into it. So people don't want to go back to dongles for some reason. I don't know why. What it really means is if you want to get ahead of the game, start using Bluetooth headphones and beat Apple to the punch. Stop using the headphone jack. Go Bluetooth. So this is what I think is going to be this year. These are my predictions for the new iPhones, the 7 and 7 Plus. They'll go the A10, 64-bit. Probably won't get to 10 nanometer this year. That'll probably be the following year, but I'll put it up there. What the heck? The clock speed's going to stay. It's going to go up just a little bit to 2 gigahertz. I think they're going to go to 3 gig of RAM for the 7 Plus. Up the speed, up the battery life to about 26 hours. Dual cameras on the 7 Plus. A larger camera sensor on the 7. Optical zoom is what you can get with the dual camera. So the 7 Plus will have optical zoom, and this is where it'll use the Lynx module to get you the DSLR quality images. It will be more waterproof. I don't think Apple's ever going to say it's waterproof. They'll say it's water resistant. That's about the best you're going to get. Can you pour champagne on it? I don't know why you'd want to, but for some reason there seems to be a commercial about that for another phone pouring champagne on it, which is what happens all the time. The reality is, if it drops into the toilet, you'll be able to take it out and wash it off real quick, and that's what you really care about. Or if it drops into the hot tub or the pool. 32 gig, I think Apple's finally going to kill the 16 not enough gigabyte storage. As I call it on my show, I can't call it just 16 and then say, I can't believe Apple's still selling it. They introduce 4K video recording and then leave it at 16 gig. And here's the worst part. My dad finally got him into an iPhone. He's been a flip phone guy. I got him to an iPhone. I said, Dad, get the iPhone SE. Let's get you into this finally. He goes to the store, and it wasn't Apple store, it was the AT&T store, and they try to sell him the 16 gig version. And I'm just like, I told him, I warned him ahead of time. I said, you get the 64, Dad. Do not get the 16 gig. I think it'll have the smart connector, and it's going to be basically the same design as this. About the only thing that'll be different is the camera module, and because of that, the antenna is going to be moved up. So the camera will move down a little bit. The antenna lines will be up here and down here. So these two lines here will go away. But from all leaked photos, and right now it's hard for Apple to release something in September and not have it already being built. So right now, 99% sure that the next iPhone is going to look like this iPhone, except the antenna lines are going to move and there'll be a bigger camera module. So it's not going to be all that exciting. The other thing was up here, this one dot up here is going to be moved over to the side. So that this is the camera. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. This is the face sensor. This is the camera. Yeah. And then the removal of the headphone jack. There's still rumors going back and forth of whether Apple's going to remove the headphone jack. I think they will. I think it'll also have stereo speakers. But you know what's great about stereo speakers? To enjoy them, you do this. So.
What about some sites were saying, oh, they're taking away the mute switch?
That's another. I don't see them doing that.
I can't
Yeah,
see
I don't.
them
Yeah,
doing physical mute.
yeah. I just don't see that. Yeah, I think that'll stay. Again, I think it's going to look just like this. No, but down here will be the other speaker. Because again, you know, you got to enjoy that stereo speaker system. Now, the iPad Pro is nice because it has speakers here, 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 here. It's got 4 speakers, so that's actually nice. So future iPhones, when we look at 2018, this is a theme that you're going to see a lot on the rumors. This kind of curve comes around, curving on the edge. You see it here on this one. There's another mock-up. See it here. That's a little different version of. This is the one that's probably closer to reality. There was the reason why, if you go back to these here, there was a patent that Apple was granted, and in the patent it looked just like this. So people took that patent drawing, and that's where these mock-ups come from. There was a patent drawing of it. And if I was really good, I would have put the picture when I hit that click, which I thought I had done. So I forgot to put that up there. So here are the iPads now, iPad mini, iPad Air, and the iPad Pro, and this shows you the size. Again, if you take the screen and you look at how big the screen is, and put it here, you can see, it's nice.
It's nice.
And you can have 2 windows open, which is what I like. So I'll have Evernote open in one and Safari in the other, and I can work on my show notes on this. My son's podcast, Porter's podcast, we now produce it all on the iPad Pro. Because it's nice. We go up to his room, we plug in the microphone, and we just record right on it, and then I do the editing on it and do everything on that for him. And we do the research and the notes and all of it. And the battery lasts forever. So 2015, this was a slide I had for 2015, thinking, okay, what's going to come up? You know, next gen iPad Air, next iPad Mini, Apple TV 4th gen, iPad Pro. These were things I thought, you know, these are what the rumor mills are saying. When we look at what's going to happen this year, an Apple Watch 2 maybe, iPad Pro 2 with the A10X processor, sure, that's a no-brainer. But something new, there's not a lot. I mean, Apple did a lot of new products in last year in 2015. Maybe they'll surprise us, but the rumor mills are pretty quiet about anything really new coming out this year. I like this meme one that I saw. If I wanted to spend $10,000 on something that'll be obsolete in 3 years, I'd buy an engagement ring. So I'm not even sure. I'm pretty sure Apple stopped selling it. I don't see it on the site anymore, the edition. I can't imagine too many people were dumb enough to buy it, but you know. Some people were buying it as giveaways and contests. So they probably sold more for contest giveaways than anything else. And that's the iPhone edition. So I went and stopped and trying to think, what are the apps that I use the most for my Apple Watch? Because I use it all the time, but the apps that I use the most, and I really like, in Washington, D.C., the wife and I were there, and we were going from one place to the other. I don't know the city. I put in where I'm going, and then you just start walking. Your phone's in your pocket, and you look down at your wristwatch. It tells you in how many feet to turn and which way, and it vibrates. So the beauty of this is when you're in a city, you don't have to be walking around with your phone or having the helping hand person guiding you. Right? You can have just your watch. And when you're driving, the same thing with the driving directions. Automatically come up, and you don't have to look at your phone. You just look down at your watch, you glance, and it tells you when to turn, exit left, exit right. That's probably the one thing I love more about the Apple Watch than anything else is the turn-by-turn directions. I use it quite a bit when I work out. We go walking or on the exercycle. For indoor cycle, I use it just to track. Slack lets me see when the Slack comes in, because our work communication is all via Slack. Checking on sports scores, of course. That was even more so in basketball season, because I coach both my son's basketball teams, and it's really improper, I was told by my wife, to look at my smartphone to see what the scores are of my basketball team when I'm coaching. So now I can just look down at the phone and see what the scores are, and she has no idea that I'm actually looking at the scores. She thinks I'm looking at the time. Of course, messages, phone calls, and email. These three are core ones. Right before I started talking, a call came in from my brother, and I could just kill it real quick. So I love that, killing off the phone call without having to pull the phone out of your pocket or find the phone. And then this one here, time to stand. How many people have an Apple Watch? No one? Oh, this will be lost on you. But when you have the Apple Watch, every now and then you'll hear a ping, and it pings you, and you look down and it says time to stand. And having had it, I work from home. So when you stand up, about the only thing you have to do when you stand up, you go get a cookie. So for me, the time to stand means time to get a cookie. So the Apple Watch reminds me, go get a cookie. And it's funny, my wife will be out and she'll hear the ping, and she'll even say, time to get a cookie.
I don't think that's why they did that.
No, I don't think that was their reasoning either for the health. Yeah, but it's, hey, cookies make you happy, and Apple makes me happy. Apple TV, actually have two of them, the new 4th gen ones, because we got one and we put it up in our room, in our bedroom, and the kids were playing games on it all the time, and we had to get a second one just to put it downstairs so that they could use it down there, and they have it with their Xbox, and they spend more time on it than they actually do the Xbox. If you're going to get it for games, you do need to get the game controller, but there's a lot of good games, a lot of free games. That said, when I use it, Netflix, HBO Now, and the AMC app, thank you, Preacher, good show, crazy show. And then games are what the kids use it for, and this is Crossy Road. But I would say, the core reason people still use the Apple TV was even what you could do with the old one, which is Netflix. And I don't know, HBO Now wasn't on the old one, but Netflix was on the old ones. But the nice thing is you can go to Siri, find a television show. You can say, find Preacher or find a movie. And she'll search through all the apps you have installed and then let you know where it is, so you can find it where it's free. So if you have Netflix and you have HBO Now and you have a bunch of the TV things, you'll be surprised. Oftentimes you can find a show you want to watch and not have to pay money. Now, of course, if it's not available in any of those apps, it'll show you iTunes where you can go buy it. Now, one of the problems with the Apple TV remote, anybody have Apple TV? All right, you all know the problem with the remote, right? That this is the front of it and this is the back of it, or is it that's the front of it and that's the back of it? And when the lights go out, which way is it? So what some people say, oh, well, you can get a case for it. But when the lights go out, you're still not sure. So then you can get a glow-in-the-dark case. Or you can do what we've done in our house.
Yeah.
And the broccoli, we actually use the one from the broccoli stalks because, we watched too many episodes of The Sopranos. You wrap it down there, the nice thick green broccoli one, and now when you pick the remote up, you know which way is which. And you're not hitting the stop button when you're trying to hit the volume button.
So it might also help grip on.
Well, no, the thing is, you're watching a show and you put it down, and it's nighttime, and then a lot of shows, the volume is really bad, so the volume, all of a sudden music will kick in, and so you're reaching for the remote to go turn it down, and what you wind up happening is you grab this part of it, and then it sends it back 10 minutes in the show, or you hit the stop button and gets you out of it.
Yeah, but see, when I pick it up, it tends to just squirt right out of my hand because
Oh.
it's so slippery.
Oh.
So that's what I was thinking.
Oh,
just
just-
have rubber there.
Yeah, oh yeah, it does actually give you better grip.
So I've got the previous Apple TV. How do you move forward through a commercial?
Right up here on the remote is a touch sensor pad.
Oh, okay.
So you can just use your thumb to sense
It
forward and
also
back.
Flips, and you can also just click on the right side to skip ahead and click
Okay.
on the left side to skip back.
Okay.
It's actually a nice remote, other than the fact you can't tell which is which. It's too symmetrical. Johnny Ive, in his goal to be symmetrical, was too symmetrical.
It's
So,
also incredibly small and easy to lose.
yeah, not going. We haven't yet. This is actually a really nice remote. I mean, kudos to the guys at SteelSeries. The kids really like it. It's $49.95. It's not bad, and it charges up with the FireWire cable, or it's not FireWire, the lightning cable. Sorry, aging myself. Sorry. The lightning cable just plugs in, and it's nice, and it lasts a long time on the charge. I was really surprised. I mean, even the Siri remote lasts a really long time on a charge.
I just charged my Siri remote for the first time last week.
Yeah.
I bought the Apple TV in October.
Yeah. They did a good job.
Yeah, it took about 6 months before I had to charge.
Yeah. If your kids play games on it a lot, it'll wear it down a little bit faster.
The downside of the games is that Apple requires that they work with just the remote. So although you can recommend
They've recently pulled back a little bit on that. They've gotten a couple games that have gotten through that work with just those remotes. Yeah, I know. Early on, that was what was said. You couldn't do it, but they've couple partners they've let through. I don't remember the games, but I remember it getting through.
Great.
Yeah.
I read that they made an official thing about
Did they make an official announcement about it? Okay.
You don't have- you-
Okay.
They prefer it, but you don't have
Right.
to.
But early on, it was the rule. Yeah.
Yeah, in iOS 10 it's going to, the Apple TV knows whether it's ever been paired with a controller. And if you try to buy an app which requires a controller, it's going to say, hey, this requires a controller. Are you sure? If you've paired it with a controller, it just lets you buy it.
Cool. Now, accessories. One of my favorite accessories for the past year, it was called Bumpies. Companies changed to Utomic. That's the case for my iPhone. These little corner nubs. That's the whole case. So that's the case. I put a glass protector on the top of it, so when things drop on it, it's still protected, which has actually happened to this one. But that's the whole case, is the nubs. That's all you need to protect it. So this is beautiful because it feels like it's naked, but it's not. And it looks naked. So, I mean, you buy it because it's beautiful, but you don't want to ruin the look of it. Now, I would never put these black ones on here. You put the white ones on it, and it just matte molds in. And you can get different colors. And they have a really cool, when you buy it, this little case comes with it that you put it into, so it holds it in place, and you put up the nubs on it. I put these on in the first week of December. They're still on. It's funny, I think they're like $35 for these 4 nubs, and someone emailed me, one of my listeners emailed me, goes, $35 for those little nubs, that's ridiculous for what you get. I go, it's not, you're not paying for what you get. I go, you're paying for what you don't get. So what you're actually paying for is not having to have a case. One of my other favorite accessories I've added this year, the Ring video doorbell. I love this. Wherever I am, usually my office is right near the front door, so I don't even have to get out of my chair. I can just look and see who it is. But when I'm traveling business, I can see someone at the front door. I can see the kids there and go, hey, Henry. And then turn around and look. But I like the Ring. They do a good job with their doorbell. One of my other ones, last year when I came here, my Apple Watch had the ugly blue sport band. This metal band here, if you were to buy it from Apple, I think it's like $200 or $299 or something like that for their linked bracelet. It was $49 off a Kickstarter campaign. So I think it looks pretty nice. And then if you travel and you have an Apple Watch, this here plugs in and you just put it on and charge it up, and even in your house, just makes it a nice little thing. It's called Stands Out, and it's a nice little charger. So if you do get an Apple Watch, highly recommend that, because otherwise you got this really long cord and it's all over the place and just it's a mess. As I mentioned, there's a good chance Apple's getting rid of the headphone jack, so you better try to find some Bluetooth headphones while you can. There's a Kickstarter project going on right now. Oops. I think they have about 13 days ago, I think I took this screenshot 2 days ago. It's called Fireflies, and they're little earbuds that go in your ear, each one, and then the case, you put it in a case, and the case has a battery, and it recharges it 4 times. So you get 3 hours of life out of it, plus you get another 3 charges on it. So you get a total of 12 hours of battery life, and the case you put in your pocket, and you charge it up by charging up the case, and then there's 2 charging connectors that are that go here, and that's how they charge it. So you don't plug anything into the earbuds. So this is pretty cool, and I think they just released another group. I think it's $79 for this right now on Kickstarter. So
it's even harder for people to know that you're not just talking to them, you're on the phone.
yes, even much harder, yes. So now that's it. It's just a little nub, and it sticks out of your head, or it's even a better way for you to get brain cancer.
Still has 2 weeks on the Kickstarter.
Still has 2 weeks, yeah. I thought there was about that. Do they have any of the 79s left?
Yeah.
Okay. Because they added some. They had run out, and they added some.
They ran out. They added some. They ran out. They've added more. There are 295 left.
Okay. Again, if you're planning on getting the next iPhone, you might want to get this Kickstarter project. Just saying. And then I like this accessory though. It doesn't work for the 6 Plus or the 6S Plus. It works for the 6 and smaller, and 6S and smaller. And it's a little camera with buttons and nubs, and you put it on there just like an old-fashioned camera, after like the old Zeiss icons and that type. So this one's already over. It's called Pictar. I didn't personally get it because I have the 6 Plus, but I had a couple of listeners that got it and really like it. And then my mobile podcast setup, I added a new piece to my mobile setup for podcasting and recording, and it's the lav mic, so I can dual lav up myself and a guest. And everything fits here in my pocket, and then my iPhone, and that's my whole setup for recording. I did an interview off that the other day where I labbed the person up, I labbed myself up, and we just sat down and we had a conversation and recorded on the iPhone. And Boss Jock is the app I used, and then edit in Twisted Wave. So for $100 plus your iOS device, you can have a mobile podcasting recording setup. And I think, one more thing. So there's rumors, you've heard Apple, I have to do it. The Apple doesn't do it anymore. But what's next for Apple? I said there's not going to be anything this year, but in the future, what people are talking about is the Apple Car. And so what's the Apple Car going to look like? Well, it won't look like that, and it won't look like that. But other ones, here's what Motor Trend thinks it's going to look like. Another concept video, a picture. iMore, iCar. I love that one. That's my favorite concept one. Flying. I mean, heck, if you're going to do the car, do the flying car, right? We're 2015. Back to the Future, they had flying cars. There's flying cars with lasers coming out of the front, wings and all that. So supposedly Project Titan's the name of it, and Apple's working on a car. And there's even a rumor right now that Apple's looking.
This is an iPhone, and it comes with something different. We designed the hardware part and the software part.
All right, didn't even know I had that in there. But there is a rumor that Apple's looking at buying Formula One racing. Because Formula One racing's for sale, and Apple would buy Formula One racing, and the rumors, why would they do that? Well, not just for the content, but for just the whole, if they're going to launch a car, just the panache behind it. Now, who knows if the rumor is true? Probably not, but that's the latest rumor. So that's the year wrap up, and I guess iOS, Apple TVOS, Apple TVOS, or tvOS, and Walch OS. So those are what I'm covering now on the show. I'm basically covering everything but Mac OS on Apple. So.
And Apple too.
Yeah. And I come here.
And it comes with something.
Why is it doing that? Okay. Any questions, comments? Yes.
What do you use your iPad Pro for when you could use your MacBook?
The beauty of the iPad Pro, one, there's no fan. So when you're doing recording, there's no fan noise that's going to kick in. The battery life is longer, much longer. And you have a touch screen, so there's some things you can do with the touch screen. I do use my MacBook, my daily machine. This is my daily machine and what I use when I'm in my office and doing emails and other stuff. But when I'm doing remote recording, I now use this for my remote recording. So I use Boss Jock app, and I'll hook up different microphones I have to hook to this. So I know there's no background noise, and I like it. It's more stable.
Do you use
I need
iPad, iPad Mini, or iPhone to do that?
You can, but the editing is easier with a bigger screen. So when you're trying to edit audio waveform, when you have to get in to pull out ums, uhs, and things like that, the bigger the screen, the easier it is to edit.
Kevin, what was the name of that iOS audio editing? I didn't remember that, and I don't. Oh, I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. No, I still don't know.
There's a bunch of different audio editing. I like Twisted Wave. I've tried a bunch of the other apps that are out there. Because one of the nice things of having my show is any app I want, I just email the app developer and say, send me a promo code, and they send me a promo code, and I get to try it out. Which is why every now and then I'll see a charge come on my credit card. What? Ferrite. Okay, yeah, I've heard of Ferrite. The thing I didn't like about Ferrite, at least at the time, you couldn't export it into MP3, and the sharing the file, yeah, you had to export it as M4A or AIF, but you couldn't export as MP3.
But doesn't you wrote an ebook on podcasting.
Yes.
Don't you recommend exporting as AIF and dumping it into Lovelater?
Yeah, but when I'm on an iOS device, I want to be able to export as MP3 finished. And I don't run Levelator. I try not to use. This isn't going to be the same as what I'm going to do if I'm doing production work.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Sorry, this is off topic, but why don't you like Levelator?
Oh, I do like Levelator on the computer, but I try not to do a Levelator when I'm actually out on the road and doing it. And if I have to do that, then I run it through Auphonic. Then I use Auphonic. Because Levelator doesn't run on here. Levelator's on here, and I love it. And they even released a version. They updated a version for El Capitan, and they're going to release I guess they're going to release a version for the new version of Mac OS X as well, if it doesn't work. But I guess the reason I would say is I like being able to do it all portable, and sometimes it's on the iPhone, and sometimes it's on the iPad. And it's just neat to do it that way. I guess, and there's no fan noise, and it's quiet. And when you get in an environment when you're recording with someone, they kind of think it's cool to pull out the iPad and do it there.
What was the name of that app? Auphonic?
Auphonic. It's not an app; it's a service. Auphonic.com. They actually have an app for the computer, but on the iOS device, I don't believe there's an app. Well, they might. I think they have an Android app. They just launched an Android app, but I don't think they have an iOS one.
I'm sorry, how do you spell that?
AUPHONIC.
Thank you. Got it.
Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry I got here late. Do you have a good app for getting streaming audio off the web into your iPhone?
Capturing the audio?
Please repeat the question.
Okay, yeah. So the question was, is there a good app for recording streaming audio off the web? And the best thing you can do for that is have two iOS devices and have it streaming on one and recording on the other, because you can't record on the iOS device the active audio from another application. Apple doesn't allow that, because then you could record music and then you'd be piracy, and Apple doesn't like that. Now, with iOS 10, there are some applications where you can actually record the video of the application running, and you can export it to do that. And that's something that's new in iOS 10. And in Swift's, one of the applications in the Swift playgrounds has that, where you can pick what your recording application is. So that's something new coming. So maybe there'll be some options in iOS 10 where Apple will release that, but in iOS 9 or earlier, you can't record that audio. So hopefully there's something with one of the new APIs that's allowing that. Thank you guys for having me back. And all right.
Thank you.